Hi everyone, to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today we're making a classic carrot cake. It's going to be 2 layers of moist carrot cake that's going to be filled and iced with a classic cream cheese icing. It's perfect because you can make this ahead of time, so you can make it up to 2 weeks ahead, keep it frozen, and then ice it the day before you're serving it. Just doesn't get easier than that. It's also great if you're looking for something to serve for a nice spring gathering, maybe for Easter. So many options. You definitely want to make this cake. It's super delicious. Let's get started. So if you're going to be making cakes at home, it's a good idea to order a pack of these cake cardboards. These are plain white, but they do have decorative ones that are golden or silver. They have like a shiny surface, so you can clean them off as you're working with them. But it makes it so easy to transfer the cake from the surface that you're decorating it on to your cake platter. So I'll put the link from where you can get them on Amazon, and you can get them from there or from a cake decorating supply shop, but they are pretty helpful to have. Okay, so to begin, you're gonna need a pound of carrots. You wanna peel them and grate them using a box grater or the grating attachment that comes with your food processor. That would be easier. You're gonna need between 4 to 6 carrots, depending on their size. Go ahead and grate them and put them in a bowl and set them aside. Then you're going to need about 2 cups of walnuts. That's about 220 grams or so. I like to toast these in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 8 minutes or so. Okay, then just pulse the walnuts, the toasted walnuts, in the food processor a few times until they're finely chopped. Okay, so now it's time to make the cake batter, and it couldn't be easier than this. Let me take you over the dry ingredients. I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 heaping teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And before I use the whisk, I'm going to whisk the dry ingredients up together, and then we're going to just mix up the wet ingredients. If you start mixing the wet ingredients first, you're going to have to use a separate whisk. So whisk the dry first and then move on to the wet, and everything gets mixed up in one big bowl. Over here I have 2 cups of granulated sugar. To that I'm gonna add 1.5 cups of vegetable oil. I like to use a light olive oil. If you use a cold press, extra virgin, really high quality olive oil, the cake is gonna be very heavy and it's gonna have a little bitter aftertaste from the olive oil. So you wanna use something light and that's slightly processed, or your favorite vegetable oil if you're a fan of vegetable oils, which I'm not. So 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract, and I'm gonna get that going first to get the sugar dissolved. Even though sugar is a dry ingredient, it melts with the oil, so it's considered a wet ingredient. It always goes in with oil or butter. Then we're gonna need 4 large eggs. You wanna make sure that your eggs are at room temperature, and it is a better idea to crack them in a separate bowl. In all my years of baking, I think once or twice I've had a bad egg. But the thing is, if you happen to get one, then the rest of the ingredients are gonna have to get thrown out. And you'll know it's bad because it stinks. Whisk all of that up. And then we're gonna add the flour in 2 or 3 batches. Then we're gonna need a cup of raisins. You could use your favorite dried fruit. I've even seen pineapple get thrown into carrot cake mixes or carrot cake batters. A cup of the walnuts that we've just chopped up. And the carrots. Now, a baker's tip is to put all of these ingredients, the carrots, the walnuts, and the raisins, in a big bowl and add maybe half a cup of flour to it and toss everything all together. What that does is it keeps the carrots from sinking down to the bottom, as well as all the dried fruit. We've been making carrot cakes when we had the bakery for 10 years, and hardly ever did that happen. But if you want to go ahead and, dirty another bowl, be my guest. Now, if you don't have walnuts, you can use pecans in this, or you could leave the nuts out, and that's it. The batter is ready. It's a beautiful orange color. I have the 2 prepared baking pans. These are 9-inch baking pans, and I'm just going to transfer the batter equally between these 2 pans. They've been lined with parchment paper, and I also did spray them with some baking spray. You can brush them with the baking oil instead, if that's what you want to do. Or even butter. You can brush them with butter. Now, if you want to take out a little kitchen scale to be super precise, you can do that. And spread the batter out. Once your cake batter is ready, then you want to make sure that your oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are going to bake in there between 30 to 40 minutes. It depends on your oven. It's best if they bake on the center rack, so that way they bake evenly. They're ready when the cake starts to detach from the sides of the baking pan. You could also check by inserting a toothpick into the center of the cake. It should come out clean. Let them cool completely. It is important that they cool completely before you ice them. Otherwise, the frosting will literally melt off and you'll have a huge mess on your hands. Cool them completely. If you're serving the cake that day or the next day, then you can ice it with the frosting that we're going to make next. You can wrap them tightly with plastic wrap, and these stay fresh frozen for 2 weeks in the freezer, or you can wrap it with plastic wrap and put it in your refrigerator and then ice it the next day. Now we're going to make the cream cheese icing, which is so simple to make. Okay, so now it's time to make the icing. I have 2 8-ounce packages, or 1 pound total, of cream cheese that's nice and soft and at room temperature. And I also have 8 ounces, or 220 grams, of unsalted butter. That also has to be really nice and soft. If you forgot to take it out, you can pop it in the microwave for a few seconds, but make sure that the butter doesn't melt. I'm just gonna break it up a little bit with the mixer. So I'm gonna add 8 cups of powdered sugar, also known as confectioner sugar. I'll add the 4 first, and I'll add the remaining 4 later, and 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. And you want to make sure you start on the lowest speed so the sugar doesn't fly everywhere. And you could add the remaining 4 cups as it's mixing. And then you just want to increase the speed to medium-high and beat this until it's nice and smooth. But I'm going to lower it first. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons, 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk. You could do orange juice or even some lemon juice. And just like that, the icing is ready. It's nice and smooth and perfectly sweet. Okay, so now it's time to put the cake together and to ice it and all that stuff. You want to make sure that the cake is cooled and at room temperature before you start icing it. Otherwise, if you go ahead and try to ice it while it's warm, the icing will start to melt and drip all over the place. If you want to, you can level this out if you want, but I'm just going to leave it like this. And I'm going to carefully flip it upside down onto my serving platter. It is a good idea to invest in some cake boards, some cardboard cake boards, because it makes transferring the cake from one platter to the other, from your decorating surface to your serving platter, much safer and easier. But it's up to you. And actually, I am going to level this just a little bit, because if you can see, it's kind of crooked. It's going down a little bit. It's going to make it harder to ice. I shouldn't have even done that, because now look, it started falling apart on the sides. Oh well. Just be very careful. I can fix this with icing because I have 15 years of cake decorating experience, but I don't want you to, cut it and then have a mess on your hands. You could always fix the uneven areas by adding more or less icing. So I'm going to put some icing in the center and then spread it. An offset spatula is also a nice tool to have if you're going to be decorating cakes. So I'm going to add a little bit more icing in the areas that it looks like the cake is kind of slanted to even it out. If you ever end up over baking a cake and if it dries out a little bit, you could always have some simple syrup handy. That's a baker's secret, actually, a bakery secret that we used to do. And you brush it on top of the cakes and it makes them really nice and moist. Okay, you put the top layer on top carefully. You always want to start off with extra icing so that way it spreads easily. And then just smooth it out or even it out, or even better, you can make little swirls so that way you don't have to worry about it looking perfect, and it gives a little bit of a decoration too. You could do the same thing on the sides. You could add a little bit more icing and just make little swirls. And then the remaining cup of walnuts that I have over here, again, if you don't have walnuts, you could use pistachios. Just put them in a tray first of all, and then you could take your serving dish and just lift it right above the tray, and you could stick the almonds all around the side of the cake. It's gonna hide any imperfections, and it's also gonna give it a nice decorative touch. Now, this is gonna be a problem if your serving platter is bigger than your cake. This is a little bigger. This is about 9 inches or 9¼ inches, so it's working out. Otherwise, I'm gonna put the link down below where you can get the cardboards, and those are gonna be much easier to work with because you could hold the cake right above this and not have to fidget around with the cake platter. And there you have it. A beautiful homemade carrot cake. I do have plenty of icing left. Let me show you how much is left. You can make half a batch for this if you want, but this freezes well. It also stores well in the refrigerator, so it's up to you. I'm gonna transfer it and put it in a container and just freeze it. So once you're done decorating the cake, it is important to let it set for a little while before you slice into it. If you have space in your freezer, stick it in the freezer for about 20-30 minutes. It is a good idea to decorate this and refrigerate it overnight and then serve it the next day. But if you don't have all of that time, max an hour is all it takes. So that way everything sticks together and holds together, and you'll slice out beautiful slices that are just gonna look pretty and taste delicious too. So let it set a little bit before you go to serve it. It is such a delicious cake, so much flavor in this from the warm spices of the cinnamon. You have the crunchy nuts in there, the carrots that just keep the cake nice and moist. And because it's a vegetable oil cake, it's just gonna be so super soft and light and delicious. And that cream cheese icing just ties the whole thing all together. It is time for the taste test, and Layla, her taste test time, she's gonna come over here and help us taste it. You ready?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Moist.
All right, she's gonna finish chewing. She said it's moist. She can finish this whole slice, but she's just gonna get a few bites because there's too much sugar in this for a little kid to be jumping and going crazy all day long. The exact measurements are on the website, www.dimitrasdishes.com. Head on over there and print this recipe out if you'd like to make it. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any more cakes that you want to learn how to make, if you didn't already know, I owned a bakery for 10 years and we made lots of cakes, so I can teach you basically almost any cake that you really love, especially if they're European cakes. Post your suggestions down below in the comment section. If you want to learn how to make Greek coffee to serve with this, click over here and I'll see you right over there. Yes, us.